And we're back. Oh, sorry. Today we're covering... God, what's the name of today's episode? Season 1, episode 20, Green Isn't Your Color. I'm still sick. This is the episode in which Rarity and Fluttershy end up posing for photo finish. Oh, I just realized. Let me dress up as a photo finish here. Just give it a second. There we go. Who shall do the magic? And in so doing, Fluttershy hates doing it, of course, because why wouldn't she? And Rarity hates the fact that she's doing it, and both of them don't communicate, and usual antics, and then finally they find out the truth, and everything's good and awesome at the end. My glasses need cleaning. My sunglasses need cleaning. My normal glasses are fine. My goodness. So, a decent enough episode, I guess. But my least favorite part is how it doesn't really properly expose Jungian arts as transposed against the more modern sense of Zarathustra's perspective. I'm just making crap up. Am I live? I'm live. So there's that spa again, right at the beginning. So she gets the usual, and immediately we see a variance between her and Fluttershy. So first of all, they use the steam as a scene transition. Good shot. Rarity is completely covered in mud and has cucumbers, whereas Fluttershy has just a few light flecks on her cheeks. Rarity gets a complete hornicure and full massage, while Fluttershy gets a light massage. Rarity gets a full wrap and mud bath. Fluttershy is just hanging out. And of course, Rarity has an engraved robe, which even before the joke at the end of the thing kind of tells you how often she goes for the usual. Now, first of all, Fluttershy agrees to all this because she's a good friend. Okay, I'm with that. But one of the things I find more interesting about the design here, and this is something that's debatable, the implication, obviously it's hard to tell because they're all animated ponies and we don't see a lot of details, but the implication is that Fluttershy is naturally beautiful and Rarity isn't. I don't mean that as an unkindness. I mean, Fluttershy doesn't do anything and she looks the way she looks. Rarity constantly takes care of herself. And she looks the way she looks. Interesting little contrast between the two. Especially given that Photo Finish's big thing was she wants to capture the natural beauty. I can't even do the voice. Anna Wintour, anybody? Yeah, there are people like that in real life. I'm not one of them. I have to take care of myself. You know, I put stuff on my skin, and then I take my knife and stab myself in the neck and rip it out, and then I look a lot better than I did previously. So then we have a really, really, really obvious Rarity crush. This might actually be the most obvious Rarity crush in the entire show. It's so obvious. If I was doing like my own pluses and minuses system for this, which obviously I'm not, this would be like multiple Rarity crush points because holy crap, they just keep hammering that point in over and over, including in the wah-wah, which I would argue is a wah-wah. We'll get there later though, because obviously it's the end of the episode. Meanwhile, Rarity is getting super nitpicky about how she wants the thing, which makes sense, but I do want to stress something. This episode... Wait, what, Ethel? What did you say? Oh my god, Spike has a crush on Rarity. We can't let anyone know, guys. We have to keep this quiet, otherwise he'll never be able to attend. Yeah, anyway, so... I do, how do I... I'm sorry. I'm sorry for spoiling the game. Or show. He's wearing the t-shirt. Where did the t-shirt come from? Okay, so Rarity gets super picky. He's like, more of this, less that, do this, go that, do this. But it's an interesting contrast because Photo Finish later does the exact same thing. The difference is Rarity apologizes for how short she's being with people and admits that she's just being so short because she's nervous and she really wants this to go well. Photo Finish doesn't apologize for anything, doesn't explain anything, and is incredibly rude to the people. And as soon as the people are done helping her, she tells them to get the hell out. Very nice direct contrast between Photo Finish and Rarity. And it helps to show why Rarity is a decent person and Photo Finish isn't. Yes, I actually referenced that earlier, Raskor. Anna Wintour? I believe I wrote it down. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Like, seriously, look up a picture of the woman. I think it's Anna Wintour. Wintour. Anna Wintour, yep, I'm saying it right. if you Google image search here, you'll see why it's so obvious. It does immediately go in line with the humility of the previous episode. That's a good point. Anywho, so I like Twilight's reaction to the whole thing. I have a crush on Rarity. Her reaction is, okay, I think she'll know. And it's Pinkie Pie, who, first of all, this is the first time we see the Pinkie Promise. That's actually going to come up, by the way. The Pinkie Promise will literally be a continuity point in future episodes. So that's kind of cool. But second of all, Twilight's, what was I saying? Right. In addition to making the Pinkie Promise, Twilight's like, well, I don't need to keep that promise. That's a stupid promise. And she's like, no, you don't. You have to explain it. Okay, sure, fine. Does Rarity know Spike she has a crush on her? Yes, that actually comes up in a future episode in this season, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, you don't break a Pinkie Promise. We see what Pinkie's like when she thinks someone breaks a Pinkie Promise. It's not pretty. So then Photo Finish shows up, and I've already kind of made fun of her. She is eccentric to the point of rude, and they do a good job presenting her in the show. The voice, the animation, the musical cues. I've mentioned the fact that a lot of characters have their own musical motif that play. Photo Finishes probably has the most overtly obvious musical motif to her. You know, that whole thing in the background. I do like how she's, Fluttershy's like, okay, I'll do exactly what I need to do to pose. And she's like, no. And Fluttershy gets so, shy about, oh, I guess I didn't do the right thing. And that's the yes. It's like, aha, that's exactly what it should be. It's like Hourglass, for example. Hourglass in chat here. He understands what it takes to be the magic. And so now we're going to turn Hourglass into a fashion star. So Hourglass, if you come up here, we have a lot of dresses for you to turn on, so it's going to take a while. In the meantime, if you want to avoid this fate, you can tell me what you want to put that sub towards. Otherwise, I will simply say thank you very much for the support, as always. Thank you, sir. Yeah, the Spike. This is probably this is why I say this is the worst Rarity Crush episode, because Spike goes way overboard in this episode. Just yikes. Yes, they are very bedazzled. They have sequins everywhere. So Photo Finish is looking for something new, sure. Rarity literally starts jumping for joy. Once again, showing how she's a geek, which I like. I know that sounds like such a strange thing to comment on, but I do like seeing that kind of enthusiasm from characters, and in real life, too, for that matter. You got it, Hourglass. Thank you again for the sub, sir. Now, here's your dresses. So, Photo Finish is like, no, she is the one who shall actually be my new thing, her natural beauty. Oh, okay, I guess I'll go ahead and do this for you. This, of course, leads to Rarity insisting that Fluttershy has to do this, because why wouldn't she want to? This is the beginnings of the actual point of the episode, the communication point. You must do this. And if Fluttershy just said, I don't want to. This isn't my thing. I have no interest in this. She would have been like, oh, okay. That makes sense. Sorry, we're going bye. Photo Finish, bye. We're going to the spa. No, instead she's like, okay, I'll go along with it, because she refuses to communicate. Meanwhile, we cut to Rarity. And of course Rarity would sew her own black cloak thing so that she can... I can't quite do it with my coat here, but so she can be just as despondent as she must be. Just that kind of a thing. I mean, don't all you guys have like a black cloak thing that you can just wear whenever you're dramatically presenting how sad and alone you feel? I don't, for reference. And I'm told I'm a very dramatic person, so what the hell do I know? Anywho, so Spike wants alone time with Rarity. Whatever, let's just move past that. You notice how, this is a really small point, I never noticed this before. If you pay attention to the manes of all of the fashion ponies, they're all high maintenance. Now, to explain what I mean by that, anybody who's had any hair and had to work with their hair over the years, there's a difference between your hairstyle, which is what you comb your hair and that's about as far as it goes, and a high maintenance haircut, right? Like, how many of you have ever gone into an actual salon and they're saying, let me give you this super amazing thing and I'll spray it with some stuff to keep, but it's only going to keep for a few hours and blah, 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 right? Yeah, that's a high maintenance thing. It's something it takes a while to set up and it's not going to last forever, right? So I noticed that all the fashion ponies have really high maintenance manes designed based on real life high maintenance hairstyles. And I was like, huh, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Because, of course, all the fashion ponies would do that, right? It makes perfect sense. Even Rarity actually does this towards the end of the show when she decides to attend Fluttershy's show. If you pay attention to what she's done to her mane, that probably took a while to do, you know? And there's a reason she probably takes it out immediately because then it's gone in the next scene. But anyways, I'm going to get off topic. So, looking at my notes here, Fluttershy, of course, hates the popularity. Why wouldn't she? And Rarity is... Now, this is when the episode kind of gets interesting. Rarity is happy for Fluttershy and jealous. And I know that sounds like such a dumb thing, but I like how they hit that point. Because too often fiction, especially televised fiction, seems to think you can only feel one emotion at a time. There's only one... If you're angry, or you're jealous, or you're happy, or you're sad, and you've got one emotion that you can present at a time. I like that Rarity is legitimately happy for Fluttershy and jealous simultaneously. And in fact, being torn between those two emotions is most of the conflict there, right? I like that. I like that they show that, and I like that they bothered to make that point. And of course, she's even ashamed to add a third emotion. She's ashamed of her own jealousy. She feels guilty. And the moment she's like, oh, I wish it should be me. I wish she'd fall. And then as soon as she says it, she's like, oh, God, I'm a horrible friend. What's wrong with me? That's all so wonderfully human and more complex than your typical one-note characters. Stuff like this is why I like this show right here. Little character stuff like this really helps flesh this show out for me. Meanwhile, Fluttershy is only putting up with this because she's doing it for Rarity. And both Rarity and Fluttershy beg Twilight, oh, you have to promise. This brings me to a point. Have I ever told you guys that I've only broken one promise in my entire life? And I know exactly the promise. I'm not going to tell you it. But I've only broken one promise my whole life. Because in my mind, a promise is something you don't break, right? In fact, I have an ongoing track record. So I've got, let's see here. We've got 1, 2, 3... 4. I have 4 ongoing promises as of this moment in time, one of which has a deadline. These other 3 are until perpetuity, right? And I mention that because I am very particular about when I promise something. Because if I promise something, I have to frickin' do it. That's how I think of that. I bring that up because this episode does the exact opposite. There's like 5 promises that are made in this episode, and all of them are about things they shouldn't be promised of. And you notice they first show that jokingly, Spike's crush. But then they show it in a more serious light, Rarity's jealousy. And then they show it in a more serious light again, Fluttershy hating the thing. And later on, Twilight even makes Pinky promise that she's not trying to deal with it, right? So I guess that's actually 4 promises in the episode. And none of these should have been made. None of these should be promises. Which just kind of makes... And of course, Pinky, it makes perfect sense that Pinky is policing the Pinky promises. As we discussed earlier, and will come up in the future, she gets a little bit about Pinky promises, so that tracks. Yeah. As an aside, Twilight could have just suggested they talk to each other rather than, trying to pull a wacky scheme, but that would probably be less amusing, so whatever. I mean, think about it. She just said she wouldn't tell him, so I'd just be like, hey, why don't you go talk to each other about it? She does have a sensor for things and a hunger for apples. They're juicy. It makes perfect sense to me, Sinister Wing. Anywho. So, I have a note here. What is with the promises in this episode? I like Pinky's charades showing how she'll keep her promise. I should have written it all down, the whole thing. Like, yeah, sure, I'll take the secret and I'll zip my things and I'll bury it deep and I'll build a house on top of it and all this. That's just a cute little thing. Anywho. So Twilight's plan, she's going to take Fluttershy out, and her plan works brilliantly. Again, the point of the episode is Fluttershy is naturally beautiful, or naturally elegant, or whatever word you want to use, right? So the only way for her to somehow screw this up is for someone else to make her do something Unnatural. Oh, sorry, house next to it, then move it on top of the hole. My bad. And yes, naturally adorable. I'm so angry I could scream. I'm so angry I could kick something. Yeah, very adorable. So she is unnaturally forced to do all this stuff that she'd never do. So it makes perfect sense that they're all like, ah. And then Rarity shows up. Now, this is really low tier, but this is the same equivalent of what I like to call when things get real. I've talked about this concept many times in fiction and in real life. You know who your friends are when things get real. You know, I have been through some hell in my life, and I know who my friends are because they were with me for that. You know, they didn't abandon me. They didn't turn on me. A lot of you guys didn't turn on me for some of that. So thank you for that. And as I was going through a lot of that hell, those people were there for me. It's kind of the same thing that happens. Rarity may be envious or green or jealous or whatever. She may be someone who is like, oh, I just wish something horrible would happen. But then when it actually happens, she's like, oh, no. No, this is horrible. Because she actually is her friend. This might actually be... This might actually be the first sign of real friendship in the whole show. Right here, the way Rarity goes to bat for Fluttershy. I know that sounds strange to point that out, but I've been tracking their friendship throughout the show, and it's been building bit by bit. It'll really come to a head in Season 2 when we get to January. But I do like, yeah, she cares more about Fluttershy than she does in herself in that moment. And so she cheers her on. And what's really funny is what then happens is something that is both heartwarming and hilarious. Because she gets the other ponies to cheer her on as well. And it's like, yes, we got your back. The hilarious part is, well, who's that person? I have no idea who they are, but they obviously know fashion. And if she likes it, I like it too. Bravo! Bravo! This is not the last time this show is going to make fun of fashion culture in exactly the same manner. The trend-following thing is real amongst ponies. Holy crap. Anywho, so then Twilight desperately tries not to give away the secret while Fluttershy and Rarity are finally talking to each other. Oh, I forgot to mention it, by the way. Earlier on in the episode, Rarity has pruny hooves. Anyways, so Twilight desperately tries not to give that away. Yeah, pruny hooves. God, that's horrifying. And finally, the two talk and they reconcile and blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, ah, Spike has a crush on Rarity. You were so close. So close. So, as I said, the message of the episode is a nice one. Communicate. Talk to people. Don't just kind of, be quiet. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't presume. Try to communicate with people. It's a good message, and I like that message. We go. Then the episode ends on a Rarity crush moment with Spike. I've got some busy things to do. Do you think that qualifies as a wah-wah? I think it does. It's a clear, I've got a joke moment. They even cut to Twilight, who actually does the eye roll in response to it. It's not as severe as some of the previous wah-wahs, but I think this one qualifies. We've got a lot of wah-wahs in Season 1, haven't we? What are we up to now? Let's see here. We're up to 11 out of 19, I think? No, this was episode 20, wasn't it? Yeah, 11 out of 20 episodes. That's pretty sad, as far as that goes. I think that's it. Let me double check something here really quick. Yep, that's it. And yeah, later on we get the mood-killing music, which I gotta be honest, I prefer that over the wah-wahs. But either way, I'm gonna go ahead and chop off the local recording.